Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the CODESYS Feature Briefing, October 2022. My name is Hilmar Panzer. I'm the CTO of CODESYS. So what is the motivation and content of this event? We want to give you an update on important activities here in the CODESYS group. Of course, of the new features and the improvements that we have recently completed, let's say within the last 6 months, or that we plan to complete them also in the upcoming 6 months. So we have a, let's say, 1 year focus, last half year, next half year. And we want to also give an update if there are some changes regarding the life cycle of our products. If we have to discontinue something, we will announce it here. And we would also inform you about architectural modifications in case we have done them. Well, the CODESYS Feature Briefing is conducted twice a year. We have done it in March this year, and now it's October, and we plan to do it again next spring, I guess March again. Our goal is to keep you informed and updated about the developments that take place here. Now let's have a look on the agenda. After my general introduction, I'm going to show you the news of the CODESYS development system. Then Markus Haberstock will show the help portal and the documentation, followed by Bernhard Reiter, who will talk about the compiler and the professional developer edition, or short PDE. And then
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We don't see the agenda. Maybe there is a fault in the transmission.
Oh, sorry to hear. Well, obviously.
Now we see it.
Now you see it? Okay, perfect. There was some mistake in the tool. Thanks for the hint. Yeah, this is the agenda. And as mentioned, Bernhard Reiter will give you some news about the compiler and the professional developer edition. And finally, Andreas Kehrer will talk about the CODESYS Runtime and the CODESYS Safety. Then it's again my turn. I will talk about CODESYS SoftMotion. And then Bernhard Reiter will take over for the application technology and our Fieldbus solutions. Tanja Hafenmeier will inform you about the news we have for licensing. And Martin Decker will show you the new things of the CODESYS automation server. And finally, Andreas Kehrer, CODESYS Visualization. Yeah, let's also talk about general releases that we are having. Service Pack 19, we plan to publish on 9th of March in 2023. So we have roughly 5 months. And then we will release Service Pack 19. We are following the standard cycle of 1 year per service pack. And we have more or less every month new patch on the existing CODESYS versions, currently on Service Pack 18, so Service Pack 17. If you need patches on older service packs, this is generally possible, but we must get in direct dialogue to discuss if we can do this, because typically we can't patch bug fixes or improvements on very old versions. I think that's clear. As you know, big parts of CODESYS are now delivered as add-ons, and we have several releases of add-ons each month. And this depends on the life cycle of the single product and also on the feature strategy. And so it means that on younger products, they are released more often than major products where we have not very frequently released. We know that we should be more transparent on that part, so we are going to publish a list of all the add-ons that we are going to publish within the next months on our homepage. This is not yet implemented, and as soon as it is implemented, we will send you a link. Well, that's all for the introduction. Now let's start with the first presentation. This is mine about the CODESYS development system. Hope you enjoy it. See you later.
In this presentation, I would like to introduce you the innovations in the CODESYS programming system. First of all, the security agent, which we released in the summer in a new version 1.3. For all those who do not know the security agent yet, it helps you to manage certificates on the controller and to make security settings. A new feature is the import and export of PKCS12 containers. This requires a CODESYS control from Service Pack 18. The same applies to the new settings dialog, which collects all security settings from your controllers, displays them, and allows you to edit them. In addition, smaller bug fixes and improvements are included in this version. Let's move on to the new implementation of the ladder or editor. When we started to develop CODESYS many years ago, we combined the three programming languages, ladder, FBD, and instruction list into one editor. The possibility to switch between the languages seemed to be a big advantage for the user. In the meantime, however, instruction list no longer exists, and as far as we know, the programming language is rarely switched between ladder and FBD, especially in fully developed networks. But the switchability is exactly that makes it particularly complicated for us and makes it difficult to correct errors that are found in the ladder editor. And this led to the decision to completely rebuild the ladder editor. This does not affect the existing ladder FBD editor. It will continue to work as it does today. Furthermore, ladder networks can of course be exported from the old to the new ladder editor. We will release a preview version 0.9 in the next days and weeks, so you will have the possibility to take a look at it. The official release is expected next year, and when it is done, I recommend the following procedure. If you want to program FBD, of course, continue to use the existing editor ladder FBD. If you create a new project with ladder modules or revise an existing one, use the new ladder. But if you have existing programs in ladder and you don't plan to rework the application fundamentally, you don't have to convert them. You can continue to use the old ladder FBD editor for that as well. To make it clear, there are no plans to discontinue it. Let's move on to the next highlight, the three-way merger for text editors. We want to release this on Service Pack 19, but for now only for the project comparison. The add-ons Subversion and Git from the Professional Developer Edition have their own version cycle and can then use the functionality in a future version, where it will certainly also offer great advantage for users. But also just in a project comparison, it is a very nice thing. What is new? Beside the two compared function blocks, there is a third view where you can see the result. This is helpful if you don't just want to compare and see the differences, but also merge them. Then it is very beneficial to see the result clearly and to be able to edit it freely. In addition, there are also new operators so that you can decide not only for the left or right side as before, but also for both and still determine their order. A slider is included so that you can better organize the number of views, which are then 6 in this window, and focus on the declaration or implementation part. Now let's see this in CODESYS. I've prepared an example with two POUs that have been generated from one base and have been modified by different users. And now we see the classic view where I can accept the single modifications. But switching now to the new view, you see that we have also a result window, and I have still the option to use the left or the right block button. I can also combine, as I would do in this case, combine the two modifications, still selecting the order. And I can make use of editing freely in the result window, as I would have to do it in this case, where I would copy this part to the result window directly. So I guess this is very helpful. A minor improvement in the editors is that we support horizontal scrolling with a mouse wheel. If you press Shift and use the mouse wheel, the editor content will scroll horizontally. We have also added a small feature to the device scan for Service Pack 19. It happens from time to time that you have inserted a control in the project and then want to execute the code on a different device. Perhaps not in real use on the machine or plant because you don't constantly change the controller, but it happens more often in the implementation phase or during tests. And until now, you had to cancel each time and manually update to the correct device and then reconnect to the device. Now it looks like this. If you double click on the scanned device, CODESYS offers to do this automatically. That means the device in the application is then automatically updated to the scanned device type without further action by the user. Another usability improvement has taken place in the PLC Open import area. It has certainly happened to you as well when you import objects but already have objects of the same name in the existing application. The global variable list is a classic case for this. Then you can use this new option, rename the new object, to make sure that it is imported anyway, but gets a new name. In the past it was possible as well, but then you had to rename the existing object manually and restart the import. So now it is much more convenient. Then we come to the new addition of the Package Designer. The Package Designer helps to create or edit CODESYS packages. A CODESYS package typically contains libraries, devices, descriptions, visualizations, and so on, and allows you to pack all of these in this package container, describe it, then version it, and distribute it so that others can install it in CODESYS. It is very popular to provide target support packages for a controller, for example. Also, all our add-ons are delivered as packages. And it is also a good possibility to bundle a set of libraries and distribute it. The Package Designer already existed in the past, but unfortunately became incompatible due to the modularization, and now we had to re-implement it, which we recently completed, and we will release the new version of the Package Designer 4.0 in the coming days. The next block deals with our installer. The CODESYS installer was introduced with Service Pack 17 along with the modularization and helps to keep track of CODESYS installations and the add-ons or modules that they contain. What we have introduced here with the installer as a new feature is that it can display the release notes. It was a frequent request to us that we should deliver these in the package and present it here. That means information which issues from our error or improvement database are solved in this version, and what is the added value and the new highlight features of this release. And so we decided to publish it here and split it in two different documents: the patch notes, which is more technical with the individual changes, and the teaser notes, as we call them, describing the major new features. Since the release of version 1.3, the CODESYS installer displays this information during installation, and the user can find out exactly what he's getting. Yes, the installer keeps us quite busy. We are constantly making new releases, and introduce improvements and do also bug fixes. For example, we recently implemented an event logging mechanism that helps us to easily track what happened when an error occurs. Overall, we have started a quality initiative to improve the installer, which we want to get even more polished. For users of the automation platform, it might be of interest that the installer has OEM support since version 1.3, which means that customized CODESYS versions can also be managed by the installer by adapting it to them via configuration and special interfaces. For next year, we have planned the following feature for the installer. We want to improve the updating of special add-ons. It is in principle so that each CODESYS version consists of a set of plugins or add-ons. If it is important to me that the same code is created when I later again connect to the machine, for example to be able to log in without download, I need to freeze the CODESYS version and do not update the included add-ons. Of course, this has the disadvantage that I cannot fix any errors or security vulnerabilities that may be contained and have been fixed meanwhile. On the other hand, many of the add-ons are not involved in the code generation and therefore could be updated without any problems. And here we want to improve the installer. It will be able to distinguish which add-ons should not be touched because they have influence on the code, and which have nothing to do with the creation of the code and can be updated. And the installer will then actively offer new versions of these add-ons. Another point that will be of particular interest to automation platform users. Quite some versions before, we have integrated the Chromium CEF into CODESYS, but this has caused us a number of problems with regards to security vulnerabilities, and in addition it requires a lot of resources, especially in terms of hard disk capacity, both in the installed state and packed in the setup. And we decided to take CEF out of CODESYS and work with WebView 2 instead. This has the advantage that on the one hand it is more compact, which reduces the problem of the hard disk size, and on the other hand that the updates are realized by Windows. In other words, we can use these interfaces here, but we are not responsible for keeping the whole package up to date and delivering it ourselves as we were with CEF. Yeah, this is really something that has been bothering us for quite a while, and with Service Pack 19 we will finally make this happen. One more side note, we will also be moving to .NET 4.8 with Service Pack 19. Again, this is of interest especially to the automation platform customers, but we don't expect any negative impact for them here. That's all for this part. Thank you very much for your attention.
And then we can continue with the next presentation about the CODESYS online help and documentation done by Markus Haberstock.
Hello everyone, my name is Markus Haberstock and I work in the documentation department. In the next few minutes I'll give you a brief overview of the planned improvements in the help portal and the changes regarding the offline help. So first to the improvements. At the feature briefing in spring I already introduced you to our new online help. We will add more content and features to the help portal in the next few months. Basically, these are the documentations of the examples in the help portal, a filter function for search results, and how we will improve the automatic translation. Currently, there are about 150 sample projects for CODESYS. These examples are available in the CODESYS store, in CODESYS Forge, or are part of a package. It is very difficult to get a complete overview of these examples and to find them. We are currently in the process of adding the documentation of these examples to the help portal. It will look something like this. There will be a new category, examples, on the start page of the help portal. From there, you get to the overview page of the example project. On that page, you will find a list of all projects divided into groups. This page and the next pages are prototypes, so they are in German and not complete. If you click on a heading, for example SoftMotion, you will find all related examples with a short description below. Clicking on the name will take you to the description of the example. We will create a description with screenshot for each example. At the end of the page, there will be a description of the system requirements and a link for the download. For the search in the portal, there is now already a new, very useful feature, a filter for the results. If you now search for a content, so you still get all hits, but you also see in which publication the hits are. Thus, you can very quickly limit the search results to, for example, library documentation or examples. So if you click on the examples, you just get the hits in this publication. So next topic. Yes, in the new help portal, we offer all content in 7 languages. All languages except German and English are automatically translated. In contrast, the CODESYS user interface has always been translated into the languages by a translation agency. In the next step, we will integrate the translation database of the localization into the automatic translation. Thus, identical terms will be used in the user interface and the corresponding help. This will significantly improve the quality of the translations. Now a few words about how we want to go on with the offline help. We are currently investing a lot of effort in the expansion of our online help, and we will focus on that. In the future, we will no longer support the CODESYS offline help, which is based on the CHM format. The CHM format is very outdated and no longer meets today's security requirements. We will remove the CHM offline help from the setup for Service Pack 20. The schedule for this is as follows. With Service Pack 18, we launched our new online help, and in the setup of it, there was the offline help based on Service Pack 17. This will not change with the release of Service Pack 19. There will still be the offline help, but again, based on Service Pack 17. With Service Pack 20, which is in 2023, we will remove the offline help. There will only be the online help available. With the installation of a package today, it is possible to integrate own help content into the CODESYS help. This was done via the internal CHM viewer. With the removal of the CHM functionality to Service Pack 20, this option will no longer be available. We will develop an alternative possibility until Service Pack 20, so that customer-specific help content can continue to be assessed via the CODESYS user interface. We will inform you about this new possibility at an early stage. So I am done now with my presentation. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for your attention.
And there's a short correction of one slide we just detected right now. Markus mentioned that the offline help shall be taken out of Service Pack 20. And Service Pack 20 was terminated to 2023 in his slides, but that's not correct. It's of course 2024, because Service Pack 19 is 2023, Service Pack 20 is 2024. Okay, so let's continue with Bernhard Reiter and the compiler features.
Hello, my name is Bernhard Reiter, and in this presentation I will introduce the new features regarding the compiler, the static analysis, and other features relating to the compiler. I will start with the introduction of new IEC language features in the compiler itself. The IEC declares a feature called partial access to any bit variables. This is a feature already existing for some time in the IEC 6.11.31, and CODESYS supported a small part of it, namely accessing specific bits of bytes or words, for example. So this is like the second row here in this example. This is already supported in CODESYS, but the IEC goes further here and also defines the possibility to access, for example, specific bytes of a word or D word, or even, for example, a complete D word of an L word variable. The syntax itself uses the % sign and is very similar to the direct addressing of memory already known. And CODESYS will also adhere to the standard and apply this syntax also to the partial access to this variables itself. So this feature will be part of SP19, which will be released beginning of next year, and also the improvements which I show for the library manager will also be included in this version. Download missing libraries has been extended, so now it can also download libraries which are referenced by using the star, which means newest version in the project. Usually a library is resolved to a very specific version, and downloading this version, if missing, is already supported since a few releases in CODESYS. And now specifically interface libraries are usually referenced by using the star, and so far it was not possible to download this library if not already installed somehow in the local repository. So this is now an extended possibility and will make life of CODESYS users a bit easier at this place. Another change which you can see here in the screenshot is this new node, which is called libraries inherited from the pool library manager. So it's a behavior from CODESYS, or a defined behavior, that if you include libraries in the POU space library manager, these libraries are implicitly also added to all library managers of applications part of the project. With the difference that then the final resolution of this library, or the placeholder resolution, is then applied, for example, to the specific resolutions which the device description, for example, provides. This behavior wasn't always clear and a bit confusing maybe to the user. We tried so far in the PU space library manager to make it more clear by using this small blue info icon, which you can see here, which then stated that for which libraries and devices in the application, then which effective resolution would then be applied for that application for this library. Users did not really grasp this concept, and so now we include in each library manager of the application itself this new top level node, and then it shows which libraries from the PU space are implicitly added to this application, and shows the final resolution applied exactly for this application here. So this whole concept should now get more clear for the users and more understandable of why and which libraries are actually used by an application. Another usability improvement or reintroduction of a feature we did is the library parameters. Originally, the usage of them was discouraged from version 3.5 SP15 onwards. It had conceptual problems and led to many bug reports and usability issues, which were not easy to fix or could not be fixed at all. So then we decided to disable this feature from SP15 onwards, but editing in existing libraries was still possible for users. It was just not possible to add library parameters to new libraries from then on. Now, due to user feedback, we discovered that this was a very important feature for CODESYS users, and we decided to reintroduce it from SP19 onwards. But also we tried to give the feature a greater rework to make it more usable and understandable for our users. The usage in libraries itself remains unchanged, so you can now again add this so-called library parameters object to a library, but usage in the project itself when referencing such a library in the application changed. So as you can see in this screenshot here, we introduced now a new dialog in the library manager. So far, library parameters were basically only visible and editable when clicking at the specific library in the library manager which had them. So this made it already hard for the user because he had no central place to see where are parameters at all and where does it make sense to edit them. So he had to know this beforehand. Now, this new dialog creates a list of all libraries having library parameters, shows also the complete list of the individual parameters, and allows editing them here, also showing documentation for them. So this is now one central place where this all can be edited for each application, and also can be, for example, resetted centrally or imported and exported for reuse in other applications. The final feature I want to talk about is the static analysis. Generally, we have a product goal of allowing the static analysis to report rule violations a lot earlier and with less false positives, to make the workflow for the user generally more modern and more to increase the reaction time from him. So far, you had to program your project, you had to at least be able to successfully generate code for it, so it was not allowed to have any compile errors, and only then would the Sun rule checks be executed. For certain important rules, we already started to check and report them during editing the project, but this applies only to very few rules so far. And so now we started a research project in cooperation with a university to now apply this early checking to all rules available in the static analysis. So this graphic here basically shows how the workflow worked so far and what the new planned workflow for the future is. So CODESYS project basically creates or provides a so-called language model, for example, for a structured text or CFC implementation. Then we, during compilation, streamline this code generation or with internal representation and optimize it for code generation and do the compile checks on it. And if there are no compile errors, then we actually generate for the CPU architecture like ARMORix86 the specific code, and you get the resulting PLC application. The Sun rule checks were also based on the same internal representation, which we use for checking compile errors. But over the years, it showed that the use case of the static analysis rule checks is different from code generation, and certain information is not presented in an optimal way, or sometimes maybe even already missing because not relevant for code generation, but would be still relevant for the static analysis rule checks. So as part of this research project, we now introduce a new optimized internal representation, which is specifically created for the static analysis rule checks early on already while editing the project. And so this will allow us in the future to check rules a lot earlier and also with a lot less false positives. This is ongoing work, still part of research, but we hope to be able to release first parts of it and more rules based on this new internal representation during next year with a major new Sun release. Thank you for your attention.
Fine, let's move on to the second presentation of Bernhard. It's about the CODESYS Professional Developer Edition.
Hello, my name is Bernhard Reiter, and in this presentation I want to introduce the new features of the Professional Developer Edition we are currently working on. First of all, I want to show you the new features we have done in the Git integration, which we released in July with version 1.2. The more detailed feature presentation I already did in March of the feature briefing we did there. Here I just want to give a quick summary of the features. So usability and functionality of merge, pile, and diff operations have been improved. Also the support for new authentication methods for hosters like GitHub and GitLab has been added. And finally, we improved the reliability and performance of the integration with CODESYS. This is especially important if you're working with large projects of libraries with the Git integration add-on. So operations now like checking out a different branch or checking if the project is still up to date are a lot faster now than they were in the previous version. We also did a new release of the Subversion integration for CODESYS. This is mainly a maintenance release, and the biggest new feature we added is an improved support for working with different versions of CODESYS on the same project or repository. This is a use case which gained a lot of importance with the introduction of modularization in version 3.5 SP17. And this means now that if you edit, for example, created a project or a library with an older version of CODESYS and then check it out with a newer version and make changes to the project, Subversion will very explicitly now make clear and ask you whether you want to upgrade this project now to the new version of CODESYS, and also makes clear that then it is not compatible anymore to the older version. So this needs to be a very very clear decision the user has to make, and Subversion now better supports it and better displays and communicates with changes. We are also working on new features now in the test manager. Our new release is planned for October or November during this year. And basically the big topic for this release is improved support of unit testing for IC applications and libraries. The first part of this is that we created a new object type and wizard for implementing test cases. As you can see in the screenshot, there are different templates to choose from for configuring your unit test, and we added a lot of explanatory comments to all the interfaces and methods which are created to make the user more clear what he has to do and to guide him better in his test case creation. The second important feature here is the so-called assertions. This is a feature known from other programming languages which support unit testing, and we wanted to make this available in IC as well for our developers. So on the left side you can see how it currently works to report an error, maybe even with an explanatory error message in a test case. And on the right side you can see that basically with 10 lines of code have now been replaced by exactly one call to an so-called assertion method. So there will be a number of assertion methods for all kinds of data types and kinds of checks like equal, greater, or less, as you can see here in the screenshot. And also the test case templates which we create already include these new assertions and not the old code, as you can see on the left side. Finally, I want to do also on the topic of testing with the test manager a call for participation. We want to improve the user experience and usability of unit testing with a test manager for our IC developers and PSC developers. And for this, we are searching for interview partners. It will be an 1-hour online meeting where we come with a questionnaire with a few prepared questions. And it will be a combination of this interview in the first part and also a small task which we have prepared and which you will have then to execute, and give feedback on how well or how easy this task could be executed by you or not. We search for interview partners from different user groups, so classical PSC developers, also PSC developers which already have experience in other high-level programming languages like, for example, Python or C++. Also, we want to talk with application developers as well as library developers, and eventually also with managers of development teams who are interested in implementing automated testing or maybe even have already implemented it. So the interviews will be held at the end of this year, not immediately after this meeting or this week. So if you are interested in doing these interviews and you want to participate in the improvement of the test manager and generally in the automated testing for PSC developers, please contact us. Just leave your information and state your interest in the chat or questions section, and we will then come back to you and contact you for further details about how the process will go. Thank you very much for your attention.
So let's now come to the runtime part. We start with the runtime core and Andreas Kehrer, who is the product manager for the runtime.
Hi, my name is Andreas Kehrer. I'm product manager at CODESYS, and I'm responsible for the runtime system. And today I want to tell you what we have planned for the runtime system in the next 6 months until SP19. Let's have a look on it. First of all, we plan an independent release cycle for the runtime system toolkit. It's one part. Second part is the product life cycle of Windows CE based products. We want to shift it to the service phase. But let's start with the independent release cycle. What is the current situation? At the moment, the runtime system core is always released with the CODESYS Essential. That means we have one service pack a year. We have every 2 months patch on that service pack, and we do that for the last 2 service packs. When I say that we release the runtime system, it means we release the runtime toolkit itself, which is the base for all platforms. And of course, we release the Control WinSL and the Control RTE-SL. So they are all bound to the CODESYS Essential release cycle. But we also have other products, runtime system products like the Control Linux SL or the Control Linux ARM SL, which are released in an independent release cycle, so they are not dependent on CODESYS Essential releases. And our goal is to release all runtime system products in their own release cycle, so not bound to the CODESYS Essential. How do we think how we can get there? We have 3 steps. First is the product hardening. So that means that we spend a lot of time on developing automated and extended module and integration tests, and we extended the system tests so that we can guarantee a good product quality on every release. Next step is that we set up a generic build job so that we get a separate artifact for each runtime product, which we then can use for testing and releases. Last but not least, we need a new setup. So every runtime product will get a separated setup. And these setups or these packages will include not only the binaries, but also the device description and all libraries which are needed for that product. At the end, this will not mean that the CODESYS IDE setup will not contain the runtime system or the gateway anymore, but we now have the possibility to either install it together with the IDE, so it will be transparent for all users, that will stay the same, but you have now the possibility, or when we have fixed or implemented that, you have also the possibility to just install the gateway on a Windows PC or just install the RTE or the Windows runtime system without real-time behavior. What are the achievements of that independent release cycles? Our release planning will be much more flexible. This is because the releases are faster and easier, and we have reduced dependencies to other products. In fact, we are then able to release only single products, so it would be possible to just release the control runtime toolkit, or just the Win control, or the RTE could be separated as separate product and doesn't require to also have an IDE release together with the runtime system. Okay, so that's it for the independent release cycle. Let's get to the Windows CE life cycle. We want to shift the Windows CE based products to the service phase, and this is because Windows or Microsoft announced the end of life of Windows CE or Windows Compact, and in fact in October 2023 the extended support for Windows Compact 2013 ends. So our plan is to also shift the Windows CE based products into the service phase, and we will do that on the 1st of April next year. This is after SP19. So for SP19 itself, everything stays the same as it is today, but afterwards we will shift it to the service phase. That would mean we have no advertising anymore. We will remove all the information from our data sheets. We won't sell the product to new customers anymore. We actually recommend we recommend our customers to do the same. So do not start new products or projects with this platform. And we of course do not test new features on this platform anymore, starting from the 1st April 2023. Last but not least, of course, we won't test this platform for patches and service packs anymore. The final discontinuation date will be the 1st of April 2025. If you have a product based on Windows CE, please contact our sales, get in touch with us. We can discuss solutions for you and a way to support or to develop a product based on another platform. Okay, so that's all from me. I just can say thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Yes, and we will immediately continue with Andreas' second presentation about the CODESYS Control SL products.
Hello, my name is Andreas Kehrer. I'm product manager at CODESYS and responsible for all Control SL products of CODESYS. Today, I want to show you some news on the SL products which we have planned for the next 6 months. So let's get into details. We have 3 blocks. One of the improvements is the performance farm which we want to make. Then we have some improvements for the Linux ARM SL product. And last but not least is our new product, the Virtual Control SL. Let's get into details. For the performance farm, what we aim for is a systematic test of the performance data of our SL products. We want to measure the kernel latencies of the system. This is what we do with the cyclic test. It's a Linux tool which is free and open accessible for everybody. Then we want to measure the IC task jitter, the IC task cycle time, so how long runs the task, the EtherCAT frame round trip time, the jitter of the send and the receive. This is very important. And last but not least, we want to run the tests not only with the empty CPU, but also with CPU load. Of course, this is not done only on one system. At the moment, we have 4 systems on test. This is a Raspberry Pi with our Control Linux ARM SL. Then we have the Control Linux SL on the native Debian PC. And we have 2 times the virtual control. One time it's running on a Debian PC in a Docker container. And another one is running on a Red Hat PC. or a PC with a Red Hat Linux in a Podman container. And of course, this is not the final list. We want to extend that list to provide comprehensive real-time data, performance data to you. What did we do by now? What improvements did we do? Of course, the easiest one is to install the RT-preamp patch, but we also improved the kernel configuration, the DMA latency configurations, and we tested some core isolations. That means that we assigned cores to special tasks in the IC application. And the idea behind of all that is, of course, we do a change, we test, we measure, and we document the results. And so we get a step-by-step description on how to improve your system. And this is what we will publish in the new online help as well. Let's have a look to such a measurement. Here we have the measures of a Debian Linux PC with the RT-preamp patch. On the left side without optimizations, on the right side with optimizations. And very interesting is the green figure, because it shows the tests with CPU load. And here you can see that we were able to improve the send Ethernet frame function from 350 microseconds to about 50 microseconds by kernel optimizations. This is not the end. There are still other optimizations which we can do, but this is by now actually a quite good improvement. Let's come to the next block. It's the Control Linux ARM SL. Here we have some improvements to announce. One is we'll do a release version 4.6 in the mid of October, and it will be based on the new Runtime Toolkit version 3.5 SP18 patch 3. We will support a new device from Weidmuller. It will have local IOs and Ethernet-based Fieldbuses, so Profinet, EtherCAT, and Ethernet IP. And it will be supported by our standard product, the CODESYS Control Linux ARM SL. In addition to that, I have to announce a compatibility information for the CODESYS Control for Raspberry Pi SL. We had to do an update of the license information of Raspberry Pis. And because of that, the old license update files, which you might have, are not compatible with the newer runtime versions by default. So if you have one of these update files, you need to do a workaround. That means you have to create the CMACT license container with a runtime system before version 4.4, and then you can update to a runtime system. So you have to do a step in between when you do an update, or you have to do 2 steps to update the runtime system to reuse the older license update files. Let's come to our new product, the Virtual Control SL. Here we have just detected some challenges which we see in the automation industry. One is, of course, the bottleneck of the supply chain, which is quite big at the moment, but also other challenges like the scalability, maintainability, or changeability of the IC applications and the systems, the PLCs. And we discussed, or we invented, the CODESYS Virtual Control to tackle these challenges. Let's have a look to the use case of a virtual PLC. As you can see, it's not only based on a single hardware, so we can have different hardware as a base, and of course also a virtual PLC has to run on a hardware. In that case, it could be an IT server, but it could also be any IPC hardware actually. Then we might have or might not have a virtualization layer, and on that virtualization layer there is running an operating system, typically a Linux with an RT patch to provide a real-time behavior. On the operating system, we have containers, typically Docker or maybe Podman, running our Virtual Control SL in a container, and each runtime system instance can execute an application. It could be the same as shown in this figure, but it also could be different applications which are communicating with each other. The virtualization layer provides a hyperconverged infrastructure, shortcut HCI, HCI, and the logical division of software and hardware enables to extend the hardware without changing the software. So hardware and software are divided, and the hardware is providing the resources and the software is providing the functionality. And this approach enables a seamless integration of IT and OT, because you can run OT applications on IT hardware. And of course, we have a microservice approach, because every instance of the runtime system can have its own application, executing this application independent from other instances. So you are able to shut down or to restart new applications, to update, to create, to update the instances very independently from all the other instances. So this is the real microservice approach which we realized with this new product. And of course, it's secure by design, because even if you have to shut down one instance of that containers within part of the application, all the other instances can run without any effect. So even if one has to be shut down, all the others still run. But since we now have a one-to-one relationship between runtime logic to hardware, we also have to use a new business model, because the paying per device is not possible anymore. So now we have a pay per use. So we charge the runtime of a device or a runtime system instance. And of course, each runtime system instance has to have its own license. If you have any question on that new approach, please contact me or contact us on the exhibition in Nuremberg. We are happy to show you that new approach. Okay, that's it for now. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And yeah, thank you for your attention.
Yeah, and then we want to continue with the third presentation of Andreas. This is about CODESYS Embedded, and especially focusing on safety.
Hello, my name is Andreas Kehrer. I'm product manager at CODESYS and responsible for the safety-related products. Today, I want to talk about the news in that field. We have 3 topics today. This is one, that CODESYS as a qualified tool, as a qualified safety tool, the new features in CODESYS SaIL 2, and last but not least, our new SaIL 3 product, CODESYS Visualization Control SL. Let's have a look to the qualified tool. How is it done today? We have CODESYS, we have 3 different products based, or 3 safety-related products, but we also have 3 qualifications for one and the same tool. So we have 1 qualification for the SaIL 2, 1 for the ESM product, the EtherCAT safety module, and 1 for CODESYS Safety, which is our SaIL 3 product. Same tool, 3 qualification. I think you can guess that there is some room for optimizations, and thanks to the modularization, there's now a way to do that. And how is it done? Let's have a look to the CODESYS after the modularization. We have a CODESYS Essential, which is the base of CODESYS, and we have quite a few add-ons. This is just a short list of it, but there are quite a few add-ons, and there might be also third-party add-ons. And of course, we have the safety-related add-ons, the SaIL 3 add-on, the SaIL 2 add-on, and the ESM add-on. And by now, we always qualified the tool as one piece. But now with the modularization, we are going to qualify each single add-on and the CODESYS essentials separately. And how is it done? We take each add-on, do a classification according to 61508. And there are 3 classifications, T1, T2, and T3. T1 is not safety related, so you can skip that add-on. And for T2 and T3 add-ons, we do a tool validation. That means we do an analysis. From that analysis, we get safety requirements, and this is what we do in our validation. We test these safety requirements, and this validation is integrated in our release tests. So as a result, each add-on is automatically qualified as a safety tool as soon as we have done the release. So for the user or for customers, the result is that you can use almost any set of add-ons, and they are by default qualified as safety tools, and you can use any set of add-ons as a CODESYS safety tool then. Let's come to the next topic, the new features for SIL 2. The first one is the K1939 safety protocol. We have implemented it for SIL 2. We have realized it as function blocks. Configuration happens in ISE, and the release will be on SP19 SIL 2, the SIL 2 release. Next topic is the new platform support package for the Infineon AURIX TC3. The implementation is already done. Release happens with the SIL 2 release based on SP19. Next topic is the FSE protocol. The master stack was already released with SP18, and with SP19 we are going to release an FSE configurator. So an import for the easy files and a configurator to set the FSE protocol parameters. Last but not least are the PLC Open Safety function blocks for SIL 2. We have implemented the first set of function blocks, which we will release with SP19, and the next, or the missing function blocks will be implemented with the next service packs. There are 3 function blocks which we won't implement. This is the Safe Stop 1, Safe Stop 2, and Safely Limited Speed. Let's come to the last topic, the CODESYS Virtual Safe Control SL. What's the idea behind of that? You may know that we have a runtime toolkit for SIL 3 PLCs, and we take that runtime toolkit, put it into a container, and create a virtual safe PLC from it. This safe PLC will run with a mixed criticality code. That means the safe code and the standard code runs in the same context, and this will run on standard hardware. So you can use any IPC hardware to run this SIL 3 runtime. How is this possible? We use a mechanism called coded processing, and this coded processing ensures the required diagnostic coverage for SIL 3. This coded processing technology enables us to run safe code in standard environment. This is a pre-certified transformer from the company Silistra, and we have already created a concept and sent it to the TÜV Süd, and already received approval of our concept. How does it look in the architecture? You may remember our virtual PLC. So we have the IT servers, the virtualization layer, the Linux with the real-time patch, and in a container system they are running the virtual PLCs. And now it's not only the virtual PLC, but also the virtual safe PLC running on the same hardware. So you cannot only replace the standard hardware with that virtual PLC, but also the safe PLC. You can replace it with a virtual safe control. Yeah, as I said, the concept is we have a concept approval from the TÜV Süd, and we have started the implementation. Let's have a look to the schedule. The prototype is already or almost finished. We will show it on the exhibition in Nuremberg. It's running already in a container on Intel CPUs, on a Linux system. The FSE master stack will be available, and the exchange variables. For the release is planned for SP20 in March 2024. There we will have the TOV release. We will provide the ProfiSafe version 2.6 protocol. And as a first product, it will run on Linux x86 or x64. And the idea is to do the whole certification with the TOV, so that users don't have to do any qualification at the TOV anymore. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Yeah, this was Andreas' presentations. Now it's again my turn. I'm going to show you the news of CODESYS SoftMotion.
So let's move on to CODESYS SoftMotion. Also here we have several new features that we want to show you. First, an overview of the releases. Since the last feature briefing in spring, there was version 4.12, which was released in July, and currently under implementation is version 4.13, which we expect for December. Let's start with the new driver for the Stoibli CS9 robot controller. We've added SoftMotion support there, and you can attach the device to the EtherCAD master and have the SoftMotion axis below it as you're used to. In this model we have 4 axes. In addition, there are own pre-configured axis groups for individual models like this one. Then there is a new function block for a logical axis. If the term logical axis is not familiar to you, this is a kind of copy of a SoftMotion axis, which is fed by the same position encoder as its main axis, but has different settings, for example regarding offset or position period. This makes it easier to program your application and can make it more modular. Up to now, it was the case that the logical axis had to be configured as a device in the device tree. With this new function block, there is now the possibility to create the logical axis dynamically in the code and to couple it to a real axis with this input here. Another improvement is the task checks in the motion blocks, both in basic and robotics and CNC. You may know that some motion blocks must necessarily be called in the motion or bus cycle, as it's named officially, because they directly generate set points for the axis, and the blocks now check this better and report this with a clear error if they mistakenly ended up in another task context. Now we come to the CNC section. There is a new block with the name SMC Read NC from Stream, and it is intended to read CNC programs not only from files, but more generally from streams, and to make them available to the SMC NC interpreter block for further processing. Thus it replaces SMC Read NC file 2, and one can use it more flexibly, for example, to process directly the contents of a string. So if a string contains an ASCII G-code, you can now directly parse this string. Particularly to mention is the function which permits to modify the G-code before it is interpreted. And one can support thereby own dialects of the G-code by modifying the parsed words before they are further processed. Another new feature in the CNC is the dynamic calling of subroutines using the syntax dyn-call. Previously, we also supported subroutines that were called directly, as you see it here in the example, where we call the subroutine drill with 2 parameters. And what is new now is that you can call the program even if the subroutine name is not known in advance, but is like here contained in a variable at execution time. So here we store the string drill in the variable with the name subname, and in the next line we make a dynamic call to the function that is stored in subname, and even with parameters 2 and 4 in this case. The added value of this function is that one can make more flexible and more modular G-code programs. Now let's move on to the robotics section. There we have an improved functionality regarding the continuation of an interrupted path. As you know, you can stop and interrupt movements of an axis group via MC group halt or MC group stop. And there was already the possibility to continue this path by means of the function blocks SMC group save continue data and SMC group continue. What is new now, that is more flexible regarding the track resumption point, which is typically either the point where we started with the deceleration or where we have completed it. And the position can be now influenced by the application with the point in time when this function block SMC group save continue data is called. Further details can be found in the online help. Another change has been made to SMC group jog2. This is used to jog individual axes of the axis group or the whole axis group itself. And up to now, the default value for the block input speed and acceleration and jerk was 100%, which means that if you simply use this block without setting its inputs, then you have always driven at full power. Of course, this is usually unwanted and even sometimes dangerous. Therefore, we have changed this behavior and the new defaults now are 0. This means that if you call the block without setting these inputs, you will get an error because speed and acceleration and so on are still 0. So you are forced to set values intentionally either during initialization or when calling the block. With this, we prevent unwanted high velocities when using this function block. A key improvement in robotics has been made by supporting modular access. Until now, SoftMotion robotics had only supported finite access. That means access with a limited position range. In practice, however, one sometimes encounters kinematics that also require endless access. Here in this model, this could be the axis at the base, for example, if it is mechanically designed that way, and quite often the hand on top allows an unlimited rotation around the blue axis here. The new algorithm supports this by using the shortest path to plan the position of the modular axis. No interface changes to the devices were necessary for this. That means it is enough if the axis is configured correctly as a modular axis in its device configuration. Another important new feature of robotics is the torque pre-control and torque limitation, which we will release in version 4.13 planned for the end of this year. Until now, robotics has only been based on the kinematic model, not on the dynamic one. That is, the trajectory generators and axis group transformations have considered position, velocity, acceleration and jerk constraints for the trajectory and for individual axes, but have never referred to torques or forces. Consequently, the axis group models did not include masses or inertias, which we did not need because we did not include them at all. This we will change now. In the new version, we can, in the first step, programmatically define the dynamic model of an axis group. That means we can enter masses and inertias of the robot hardware itself and of its payload, so that the robotics kernel is able to determine forces or torques at certain points. If we know these values at the motor shaft, we can use them to pre-control the torque or force in case of a linear axis. And in this way, we achieve a better execution quality of the trajectory. This is the first advantage of this feature. In addition, our kernel allows us to specify limits for torque and force. This way, we ensure that torques or forces are limited at neuralgic points like the gearboxes or the joints. On the one hand, this protects the mechanics, but we can also achieve better performance by not limiting the acceleration as we typically do it now, because in most cases the acceleration is not the mechanically decisive variable at all, but instead of this we use the actually critical variable, namely the torques or forces to be limited. And now a little preview of the next version planned for 2023. We want to implement digital switches on the path, similar to what you already know from the CNC, where it is called H switches. And also for the robotics, you will be able to define these switches in different ways, and the robotics kernel will then set the binary switches at the correct time. There will be different modes when or where the switching action will take place. For example, it will be possible to compensate for switching delays. The use case for this is to allow to switch special functions such as the laser synchronously and with high precision to the path. So far from CODESYS SoftMotion, I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and we continue with the presentation of Bernhard Reiter for the application technology.
Hello, my name is Bernhard Reiter, and in this presentation I will introduce the new features we are currently working on in the application technology. First of all, I want to talk about the IIoT libraries, then introduce the new OpusUA client API we are currently working on, and finally talk about the simulation interface. A new release for the IIoT libraries is scheduled for October and will be the version 1.7. Besides a lot of bug fixes we have done for several of the libraries contained in this bundle, the main new feature will be the support for the SNMP version 3 protocol. This simple network management protocol is already supported in version 2 in the libraries, and now the support for version 3 will be the new feature. Furthermore, maybe as a customer of Google, you already received an email about the retiring of the service of the Google Cloud IoT Core. So this means from August 16th, 2023 onwards, devices will not be able to connect to the Google service anymore. As a consequence, we will mark all library functions of our IIoT library as deprecated, and this will already be part of the 1.7 release in October. At this point, I just want to clearly state that the decision to retire the service is not our decision and not related to our library, but Google itself decided to retire the service. As a migration hint, we can generally say that our Google IoT library is only a very thin wrapper for the MQTT library, which is also contained in the IIoT libraries of CODESYS. So customers can switch to the MQTT library instead for sending data to a new service, and for general information about alternative services to the now retiring Google service can be found on the internet on any site regarding this topic. So the OpusUA client was first introduced in CODESYS with version 3.5 SP16. Initially, it was only available as a low-level library functionality and as a wrapper around our runtime OpusUA stack. With the release of version 3.5 SP17 last year, we also introduced a graphical configuration of the OpusUA client as part of the data sources. The next step now will be to provide a high-level function block library for the OpusUA client, which is better suited for use cases where an API or some kind of dynamic configuration is required and the graphical client is not suitable. This new library will be part of the communication add-on and not of the IIoT libraries, simply because most other OpusUA related functionality is already part of the communication add-on, and so we decided to bundle this library in this add-on as well. The target release will be in the first quarter of 2023. Finally, I will talk about the new simulation interface in CODESYS. I made already a quick teaser about the introduction of this feature in the feature briefing during March. So the general idea is to improve the use case of doing a virtual commissioning for machines. It is intended for a software in the loop simulation and to be able to easily connect external simulation software to CODESYS. The current solutions in CODESYS are limited. They either have a very high latency, for example, using a combination of OPC UA and our symbol configuration, or they have a very high engineering overhead because the project needs to be changed. And the explicit goal of this virtual commissioning support is to enable this use case without having to do extensive engineering changes to the project itself. So we checked potential solutions for the communication protocol or interface itself, and decided to base this new interface on OPC UA. There seems to be no other standard interface on the market available so far, so all solutions existing are proprietary to certain vendors. Basing this on OPC UA has the following advantages. For one, using client and server enables the usage of information models, and as such providing all the relevant metadata to the simulator regarding the device and I/O configuration of a certain project. Also, it enables to provide an interface for controlling the simulation where you can start, stop, or even step it. For the cases where a free running simulation is desired, the actual I/O data exchange can then be based on OPC UA pub/sub. This brings then the necessary performance for a fast and real-time I/O and information exchange with the simulation tool and the simulation digital twin. So this new simulation interface is still in development and will probably be released during the next year. Thank you for your attention.
And then we can continue with the CODESYS Fieldbus. Bernhard Reiter again is giving us an update here.
Hello, my name is Bernhard Reiter, and in the following few minutes I will give you a quick overview of our activities regarding the CODESYS Fieldbuses. For Profinet, our main goal is to support and improve the redundancy features available and defined in the Profinet standard. On the controller side, we will implement the system redundancy S2 support and also system redundancy R2 support. The S2 support will be released in a first version in December of this year with version 4.3 of Profinet, and the R2 support for system redundancy is planned for round about mid of 2023 with version 4.4 of the Profinet add-on. The device redundancy is also a feature we are actively developing. The first one released also with a December release will be support for the media redundancy protocol, or in short MRP support. And also system redundancy S2 support for the device is on our roadmap. Here we plan to release this probably about end of 2023. For Ethernet IP, our next release is scheduled for November of this year with version 4.4. The main new features will be that we support the version 19 of the conformance test for the Ethernet IP from the OD4A. So customers can now get conformance for this version when tested. And the main new feature will be the support for reconfiguration of individual remote slaves. So this was not possible so far with our Ethernet IP stack. Any configuration change usually required to restart the complete bus and restart also all slaves, so stop communication completely and restart it again. Now with the new release, it will be possible to just change the configuration of one individual remote slave and only restart communication to that slave without having to reset the complete Fieldbus. Furthermore, we did a number of maintenance releases of Fieldbuses this year. So here's just a quick list to give you an idea. So we released in August IO-Link and also Modbus, which mainly contain just bug fixes. We also did a release of EvaCAD last month, and we will release a new maintenance version of Can Open in October of this year. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, and the next topic is the licensing. Tanja Hafenmeier will give us some information of a very interesting new tool.
Welcome also from my side. My name is Tanja Hafenmeier and I'm responsible for the licensing within the product management at CODESYS. With my short presentation today, I would like to give you an outlook into the future. We developed a prototype that makes it possible to license any number of devices in the network at the same time. First of all, I would like to give you an insight into how licensing right now works at CODESYS. At the moment, you can either use our License Central Web Depot in the browser, or you directly use the License Manager from CODESYS. Before you get to see this window in CODESYS, you need to select the device you want to be licensed. Next step is to choose whether you want the license to be activated on a dongle or on a soft container. Then you have to enter the ticket ID. And if a ticket contains more than one license, you get the option to choose which license you want to be activated on that device. For instance, in this case, it would make sense to choose the control for Linux and SL and also to choose the control for Linux multi-core SL at the same time. So you only have to do the activation process one time for this device instead of 2 times. So for now, it is only possible to select multiple licenses for one device, but not to license multiple devices with the same kind of license at the same time. In order to simplify this process and to make it more efficient, we decided to create a tool that does make it possible to license any controller in the network with basically one single click. Due to the fact that we are still talking about a prototype, I can't really give you an insight into how this tool will exactly look like, but what can I do is giving you more information about which functions will be available. First of all, one command is to list all the licenses and container that are available of that selected PLC. This is most of all only available for information purpose. Another command is to scan all of the PLCs that are available. They will be listed with the network address, the device ID that also includes the vendor ID, the name of that PLC, and which product we're talking about. So in the end, it is kind of the same scan that you can already do in CODESYS. Optionally, what you can do, you can filter that scan. That means that only, for instance, controllers with a certain device ID should be displayed. Like, I only want controllers that start with 5 or node name Hafenmeier. Then you can also see the ticket information. This returns information about the ticket, for instance, how many and which licenses are contained in this ticket, and also what obviously is possible to license one PLC by ticket. Last but not least, the most interesting feature is the license daemon. This one will make it possible to license multiple devices at the same time, combining all of the already mentioned features earlier. To ensure that only specific PLCs within the network are going to be licensed, you can use the filter. tickets that contain more than one license are going to be tagged as being used as soon as they are being used. If a ticket contains different types of licenses via product code, it is specified which type of license is to be activated on the PLC, and PLCs that are already being licensed are being skipped. When will this tool be available? We expect a release by the end of the year or latest January next year. And then if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And of course, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you. And now let's continue with the CODESYS Automation Server and Martin Decker.
Cordially welcome also from my side to today's CODESYS Feature Briefing. As product manager of the CODESYS Automation Server, I'll present to you the newest features we implemented in the Automation Server since the last feature briefing in spring this year. For those who don't know what the Automation Server is, I want to give you a brief summary of what the Automation Server is. It is our Industry 4.0 platform for device management, for administration of your controller landscapes. It's also a platform that helps you with your application engineering, and it is a platform for data recording, data analysis, and also displaying of your data, for example, in various dashboards. The presentation is roughly divided into 3 parts. First one is about the device management, the administration functionality of the CODESYS Automation Server. Second one is about the creator and engineering capabilities of the Automation Server. And the last one is about security within the Automation Server. Let's start with the first one, Device Manager. One requirement is that a PLC needs to be replaced with a spare device. Up to now, this could already be done with a so-called replacement ticket. Now it's also possible to scan for a new replacement device. This is really just a few clicks and only takes a couple of seconds, and all settings that have been related to the old PLC are automatically taken over to the new one. So for example, if there was an application running on the old PLC beforehand, it's automatically copied to the new PLC that takes over the function of the old one. And for all this, you do not need a CODESYS development system at all. With these 2 little arrows, you can open this dialog, giving you the possibility to either create a ticket for replacement or the new one now, scan for a replacement. If you hit that button, the scan dialog opens. You simply choose an edge gateway, hit the scan button, and automatically all PLCs that are of the same type as the old one are listed. Simply select the PLC you want to replace the old one, hit the Replace PLC button, and the rest is automatically done by the Automation Server. Another requirement was that it should be possible to rescan for existing PLCs, for example, if their name changed, or also to have the possibility to actively change the name of a PLC once it's been connected to the Automation Server. And it should be possible to move a PLC to different edge gateway. The solution is that we now have an automatic rescanning for PLCs that are already connected to the Automation Server but have changed in their name or in their connection status. It's now also possible to edit PLC names, and it's pretty simple to change edge gateways via a drop-down menu in the web app. So that means you can keep existing PLCs, although their names changed or their connection status changed, and it's easy to go from a test environment to a productive operation with your PLC and a new edge gateway. What does this look like in the web app of the Automation Server? In the PLC details, this scan button opens up a dialog which automatically scans for the same PLCs, in this case with a changed name, automatically detects the PLC is still available, and gives you the possibility to reconnect to it by simply hitting that confirm button. In case you want to change the edge gateway that establishes the connection between the PLC and the automation server, hit this little pen button here, go to the edit mode, select a new edge gateway in this drop-down menu, confirm your selection, and that's all you have to do to connect the PLC to the automation server via a new edge gateway. One more requirement was that it should be possible to display licenses that are available on a PLC. We made it possible now to read out licenses from license container on devices, no matter if the license container is a software container or it's a hardware dongle like our CODESYS key. That means your access to license information is quick and easy. And this function is not only usable for reading out licenses, but also for licensing itself. That means assigning licenses to devices. And all of this works completely independent from the CODESYS development system. What does it look like? In the bulk licensing overview, you simply select the PLC you want to check for licenses. The next step, select an available license container, either on a hardware dongle or on a software container. Hit this key icon here and get a list of all available licenses on that device, on that license container you just selected. Another requirement was it should be fast to scan various networks for all available PLCs across different edge gateways. We made it possible now that the automation server automatically detects if some edge gateways are not connected, skips the scanning process for these gateways, and also lists the gateways that are not available for scanning. That gives you a very fast scan result. Any manual configuration is not necessary, and you also get an overview of edge gateways that are not available. If you try to scan over all gateways in the network scan view in the automation server, you automatically get this list of gateways that are not available, and on the other hand, also get a complete list of all edge gateways and underlying PLCs that are available in the CODESYS automation server. Another thing that already is useful and could be even more useful is the possibility to change settings not only of one, but of multiple PLCs at the same time. This is possible over the multi-selection feature in the list view. What's already possible here is to set notification settings for multiple PLCs at once, to delete multiple PLCs, and to edit tags or labels. What's new now is that it's also possible now to alter the synchronization settings for one or more PLCs at once, and also to change permissions for PLCs. That means you can save a lot of time through this bulk handling. It's also easier to do all the editing, and you can keep a better overview. In the web app, these little icons give you the possibilities to either delete PLCs, enable or disable notifications, set synchronization options, alter the permissions, or edit the tags. In case you hit the synchronize application icon here, a new dialog opens, which gives you the possibility to check or uncheck these boxes for synchronize applications or to synchronize parameters, which means allow the automation service to write applications on a PLC or on various PLCs connected to it, and or also to write and read variables on a PLC or on PLCs that are connected to the automation server. Let's come to part 2 now, the creator part of the CODESYS automation server. Requirement was that it should be easy and clear to identify applications and the devices they belong to, and within the automation server there should be clear assignment of running application and PLC. The solution now is that we display the application name and the associated device both in the project view and in the deployment details of an application, which results in the benefit for you that the risk of mix-ups is significantly reduced. In the web app, in the project view, underneath the project, you can now see all applications that belong to a project and also which PLC configured in the CODESYS project belongs to the application. And in the deployment tab, you get an overview of which application you're currently looking at, which PLC belongs to that application, and on which PLCs, in this case it's just one, this very application specified here is currently running. Let's come to the last part, the security part. One requirement was that it should be possible to activate the device user management on PLCs and also to create an initial administrator. The reason for this is, as of CODESYS Service Pack 17, the device user management is activated by default, and when you try to log in to a PLC for the first time, you're prompted to create a user management. This is now also possible from the automation server. Once you try to connect the PLC to the automation server automatically checks the device user policy. If it is found that a device user management is required, the automation server offers you the possibility to set up an initial administrator user. This workflow is really straightforward. It's as simple as secure, and also here, no CODESYS development system is required. In the web app, when adding a PLC, the automation server detects if a user management has to be activated. If yes, it gives you the opportunity to enter a username and a password and then just create your initial administrator user. Another requirement regarding security is that it should be possible to adapt password policy to any company security policies. That's why it's now possible for tenant administrators to configure passwords to their needs, which makes the whole tenant more secure and always makes sure that the password selected fit to the company specifications. In the web app, it looks as follows. In addition to the mandatory password options we already had within the automation servers, administrators can now specify a different higher minimum length of the passwords, can add blacklists, make special signs mandatory, or may forbid usernames or display names or email addresses as part of the password, the last 10 passwords to be part of the new password, and they can make it mandatory for every user to change their password according to the new password policy on the next login the user performs. One more requirement was to make a tenant-wide multi-factor authentication mandatory for every user and to verify all email addresses that are used within the automation server. The solution is now that it is possible for administrators of automation server tenants to force the multi-factor authentication for all users. That means users without a second factor cannot work with the automation server anymore if this option is activated. And every email address now has to be verified before they can perform any actions with this email address. If the email address has not been verified yet, an error message like the one you can see here is displayed. That means the access protection to the tenant is increased tenant-wide. You have an increased protection against any unauthorized usage of your email address, and you're always reachable at this known and working email address, for example, if you get any notifications from the automation server. And you also have a better protection against any typos when you enter your email address for the first time. Let's now, towards the end, have a short outlook on the roadmap of the automation server. Since the release of the CODESYS Automation Server in winter 2019, we implemented and released a lot of useful features and functionalities. Now, in fall 2022, we're still developing new cool features. This is just a short list of what we're currently working on. I want to pick out 3 of them. So first, the on-premises server will be ready next year. We're already working on it. If you want to have a first look, you can just visit us on the SPS Trade Fair show in Nuremberg in the second week of November in Hall 7. Have a look at it, as well as you can have a look on the CODESYS virtual controls there. We're currently also working on an update scheduler, which makes it possible to plan updates of any applications you upload to the automation server. And we're also working on improving the license management options with the automation server, which means, for example, to do some license backups with the automation server and also store the backups on the automation server to restore them later if necessary. That's just a short outlook. If you have any more questions, just visit automationserver.com, have a look at our YouTube channel, or get in touch with us over LinkedIn, or just write us an email. Thank you very much for your attention. Enjoy the new features. Hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. And let's come to the last presentation. This is about the CODESYS Visualization. Andreas Kehrer.
Hi, my name is Andreas Kehrer. I'm product manager at CODESYS and responsible for the visualization products. Today, I want to tell you what we plan for the visualization for the next 6 months. And one of them is the UTF-8 support, and the other is the HTML5 elements, or the planned support of the HTML5 elements. Let's come to the UTF-8 support. We plan to support this most commonly used standard in the internet in the whole CODESYS, as well in the visualization, of course. So with the next version, it is possible to code every string in UTF-8 encoding. Of course, it's not a must to switch over to that encoding. You can still use the previous existing encodings as well. But of course, we recommend to switch over to that common used standard for encoding. Of course, this encoding should be available for all kind of visualization, for all CODESYS standard operating systems, and for all CODESYS elements, or for all elements in the CODESYS visualization. That means we will support it for the target visualization, the web visualization, the HMI, the remote target visualization, all visualization products, as well as all operating standards which we support, Windows, Linux, and all the others which we can use with our visualization. Last but not least, all elements. That means any element in the CODESYS visualization which has a string inside, or where a string can be configured, should support the new encoding standard UTF-8. There are 2 restrictions for that. One is the HMI and the connected PLC. Both need to have the same encoding on both PLCs, both applications. That is one restriction. The other one is whenever you open an application of the system, of the operating system, like a text editor, it's of course up to the text editor to save the strings or the data inside of that text editor in the right encoding. That is not given by the visualization itself. But everything else in the visualization should support the UTF-8 encoding with the next version. Let's come to the next topic, the HTML5 elements. Here we do have a support in the existing version 4.2. We have a basic support in the web visualization. There is an editor to integrate the HTML5 elements, and we have several examples showing how to integrate HTML5 elements. So that's the basic support. And with the next version, which will release in November 2022, we plan to extend that support by the support in the automation server. We will release a web-based visual editor. We will provide a digital signature for HTML5 elements, and we support to transport HTML5 elements in the project archive. Especially the digital signature is important because signing elements with a certificate prove the origin of a HTML5 element is very important for the security of a system. Let's have a look at another outlook for the next version. After the version in November, we plan to have an offline view of HTML5 elements so that you really can see what you get inside of CODESYS while you are editing your visualization. There will be a versioning of HTML5 elements, which enables you to handle different versions of the same element. And last but not least, of course, the localization of the elements so that you can have different languages for one element in your project. Another thing is the examples on CODESYS Forge. So CODESYS Forge is where we provide examples, especially also for the visualization. And there we plan to extend that set of examples so that it's more easy for you to use the HTML5 elements in your applications. If you're interested in that topic, visit us on the exhibition in Nuremberg. We will for sure show you the latest integration of the HTML5 elements on the exhibition. Now I just want to give you a short outlook on how HTML5 elements look in CODESYS. So this is a typical CODESYS visualization which we prepared, and we have a menu up here which slides in and slides out very easily. You can select your menu visualizations which slides out of the screen, and here you can see the responsive design of HTML5 element. So whatever I do here, we have a direct response on the screen. I can integrate different random elements, and by that I'm not limited anymore to the elements which CODESYS provides. You can integrate any HTML5 element in CODESYS and use it in your application. So you have a big possibility to choose new elements for your visualization and configure it inside of CODESYS and pass CODESYS data to that elements. As I said, if you're interested in that topic, visit us on the fair. We are happy to show you how this is done. This was it. I hope it was a good new information for you. And if there are any questions on that topic, please let us know. Bye.
Yeah, Andreas mentioned it already. The exhibition in Nuremberg is quite close, about to start today in 3 weeks. And you can, if you have the chance to go there, we would be happy to welcome you on our booth in Hall 7, booth 580. And today we have leaked already a lot of information. And anyhow, it's always better to be in direct exchange and talk directly. We would be happy to see you there if you have the chance. Now let's have a look to the questions that came in. Some of them we could answer directly already, but some of them we want to take to the plenum. Actually, just 2, as far as I see, right? One is about the compiler feature. It's for Bernhard. One of you asked, just to be certain, the partial access to any bit variables. I'm assuming that you can assign the opposite way than shown in the example 2. That means word point byte 1 colon equals that byte semicolon. So this is the question is just, is it only a reading access onto the bits, or is it also a writing access? Bernhard, I know the answer, but I let you give it.
Yes, so we support, of course, both cases. So reading and writing access is supported.
Thank you very much. And then we have another question for Andreas regarding the runtime and the Docker containers. Is it CODESYS available to install in a Docker officially?
Yes, we have. From technical point of view, we have already implemented it and released it as beta version. From a legal point of view, we are at the moment checking the license rights. So
there is still some work to do, but we will looking for an answer for that part.
Thank you very much. And I hope to see all of you on either the exhibition, but I can imagine that for many of you it's not easy to travel there. Maybe we find another possibility, or latest next year for the next feature briefing. I hope you will participate again. Thank you very much. All the best to you. Bye.